My guest today is Natalie Sanandaji, an Iranian Jew from New York, born to Persian and Israeli parents. She is also a survivor of the Nova Music Festival massacre, where a reported 364 people were murdered by Hamas terrorists. This tragedy was part of the wider 7th of October attacks in Israel, the single worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. Since that day, Natalie has devoted her time and efforts to raising awareness about the grave events that took place. Natalie, thank you very much for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Good, good. Look, it's my pleasure to have you on. I think this is really important to talk about. It's nearly been a year since the 7th of October attacks. I mean, my first question is sort of in a broader sense. How are you doing these days? How are you coping?
Um, Thank God I'm doing good. I I always tell people, when I speak about my own journey since October 7th and I speak about how I was doing literally from the day after the attacks until now is not necessarily a proper representation of how all the survivors are doing. And when I tell my story, I always like to point out the fact that I don't want to just speak on my own behalf and I don't just want to speak about myself because it's not really a proper representation. Because unfortunately, a lot of the survivors are still not doing okay and they are still suffering with a lot of the trauma on a daily basis. But I can say that thank God I'm doing, I would say, better than most.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm heartened to hear that. I mean, let's go back to that day. Starting from the beginning, what was it like? Let's go back to the start of the festival. What was the atmosphere like?
Well, I arrived at the festival with three friends, all of whom were Israeli, and the atmosphere of the festival was it was something that obviously wasn't tangible, but it was something that was so beautiful. I always tell people that generally the people who go to psytrance events, a lot of the time they're compared to the people of Woodstock. Very peaceful, kind of hippie-ish, very much like people of the earth, very welcoming, very loving, and it was beautiful in the beginning. It was beautiful until it wasn't. We arrived at around 1 a.m. and our friends that we were meeting there had already set up the campsite. And when we arrived, they welcomed us, and I didn't know all the other people there. I only knew the three friends that I came with, and everyone was so sweet and welcoming. And automatically, we got to the campsite. We went to the dance floor. We danced for a few hours, and my friends that I came with were a bit tired. And after dancing for a few hours at around 3 or 3:30, they said that they want to go back to the campsite and rest for a few hours and then wake up for the sunrise set of the festival. Which generally, people who go to these festivals, they know that the best DJs are coming on at the sunrise set, and it's kind of the most energetic time and the happiest time. So that's what we did. We went to sleep, and we were then woken up at around 6:30. As everyone knows, 6:29 is when the music stopped. Um, and from there, things only got worse.
So let's go to the moment that you were woken up. What was that like? How did you actually wake up?
So we were woken up by a friend who was on the dance floor when the first rockets were intercepted. And she knew that the three of us were sleeping at our campsite. We kind of just fell asleep in camping chairs. We were still outside. It's not like we were in tents or anything. And she came over and she kind of nudged us awake and she said, Boker Tov, guys, good morning. She was like smiling and she was still very positive and happy. And she said, hey guys, I just wanted you to know a few rockets were intercepted overhead, but it's normal for the area that we're in. It'll probably just be a few and the party will continue, nothing to get too worried about. I just wanted you guys to be alert to the situation. And for many people, this is very hard to understand. I think one of the main questions I got asked when I started interviewing after the attacks, I started to interview about 4 days after. The main question I got asked was, why did you not start running right away? Like, why would you see rockets and act so calm? And the answer is that for me, I was the only American in the group, and I've been going to Israel almost every year my entire life. And it just so happens I had never been to Israel at a time of war. So I had never experienced rockets before. But I looked to all my Israeli friends and I tried to kind of see their reaction and follow suit. And I saw that they were all fairly calm. And the answer is that for Israelis, unfortunately, this is their reality. They live with this on a semi regular basis. They experience rocket attacks. And truly, if Israelis were to stop everything that they were doing every time a few rockets were intercepted overhead their heads, they simply wouldn't get anything done. And a testament to that is the fact that a few months after the war had started, I came back to Israel about 3 months after, and I was working in an office space in Tel Aviv, and I'm sitting outside having my lunch, and then suddenly the red alarms go off, and everyone starts running back into the buildings, and we run into the bomb shelters. We wait about 10 minutes to see if any more rockets are coming, and then we went back to work. And that just goes to show that this is truly the way that Israelis live their life. You know, they wait 10 minutes, okay, no more rockets, you have to go about your day again. And that's kind of how it all started. We were all fairly calm. We were all sure that, this was just Hamas trying to scare us. It was just a kind of psychological warfare tactic of theirs to scare us and to try to ruin our day. Especially during the holidays, there are many instances, as we know, the Yom Kippur War. There are many instances where they try to attack at a time where we are trying to be most at peace. So at first we figured, this is just them trying to ruin our holiday again, and it'll end in a few minutes. It'll be over, and the party's going to continue. We're going to enjoy our day. We're going to have a great time. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Um, we started counting the rockets because at first we're like, okay, it's just going to be a few. And I remember just standing up and looking up at the sky and counting every single one that's being intercepted over my head. And first it was 5, then it was 10, and then it was 15, and then it was 20. And I think somewhere between maybe 15 and 20 is when we start to realize this isn't just another ordinary situation. This is something beyond that. And that's around the time where the festival security, really shut off all the music and announced on the loudspeakers for everyone to please pack up their things and start evacuating to their cars.
Right. So many people will have seen in the videos of the massacre, Hamas terrorists were essentially paragliding into the festival. They were storming the ground. Now, you and your friends are being told to evacuate. What happens after that?
Well, we pack up our things, we start heading out to the cars, and at this point, we still think, oh, it's just rockets, which is a funny thing to say, just rockets. It's still a big deal. Um, but we figured, our biggest fear was scraps from the intercepted rockets hitting our cars as we're driving out. In our head, we're like, okay, we have the Iron Dome. We're going to be okay, but we might be stuck in traffic because it was about 3,000 people at this festival. There was one narrow dirt road heading to the main road, and we figured everyone's trying to leave at the same time. It's going to take us a few hours to get home at least. So I had asked my friends if they mind if I go to the bathrooms before we start driving out. And they were like, yeah, of course, go to the bathroom, take your time. We're going to be stuck in traffic anyway. We're waiting for you by the car. So I go to these bathrooms. And today, these bathrooms are very well known. It's those yellow porta potties that I'm sure everyone has seen the video. This video surfaced about 2 weeks after the attacks. It started to really circulate and become popular. And it was the video of the Hamas terrorists coming to these yellow porta potties and just shooting at everyone, trying to kill anyone who might be hiding inside. So I was in those bathrooms maybe 15, 20 minutes before they arrived, maybe even less. I go to the bathrooms, I head back to the car, I meet my friends, and we start driving out. And of course, as we thought, we were stuck in traffic, we're moving very slowly. And the festival security was kind of on either side of that dirt road. And they were trying to kind of guide everyone as if they were like sheep herders. And they were trying to tell us like what direction to go into. And at first, we're driving in this direction. Then they start yelling at us to turn around. We're driving in the other direction. And then after a few minutes, they start yelling at everyone to pull their cars over to the side of the dirt road and get out of their cars and start running. And to us, we were so confused. We couldn't understand why would they tell us to run from rockets. It simply didn't make any sense. But we figured, they have our best interest at heart. It's probable that they know something that we don't know. They are the security, so we should probably just listen to them. So we pull our car over, and we're sitting in our car for a few moments. We're kind of just looking at each other, confused. And that's when we heard the first gunshots. And as soon as we heard the first gunshots, we opened our doors, we started to run, and it was truly just complete chaos. People were running in every direction. Nobody understood what direction was the direction of safety. But people were just scared. I think that's like the moment where I was most fearful. And kind of in that moment, I would say it started with the rockets where I really kind of disassociated. And throughout the running, I just disassociated more and more. And I disassociated so much to the point where I was truly having an out of body experience. And I had always heard about out of body experiences and what they mean and what they're like, but I never fully understood how could you feel that you're floating outside your own body? Like, how can you feel as if you've detached from your body completely? I completely disassociated truly to the point where it felt like I was floating above my body, and it felt like everything that was happening to my body, but it wasn't really happening to me. It felt as if I wasn't really there and I wasn't really in danger. So there were many moments where anytime the shooting stopped, we would kind of slow down to catch our breath because, as you can imagine, we're wearing festival clothing. It's very hot outside. It's Israel, and even in October, it was still very, very hot. We're in the sun, we're sweating, we don't have water with us. And anytime we didn't hear gunshots, we would slow down a bit to catch our breath. And there were multiple times where, as they started shooting at us again and people started running frantically, I would stop in my tracks and I would just stand still and I would stare at all the people running past me. And that just goes to show how disassociated I was. That just goes to show how much I really didn't understand that I was in danger. I truly felt as if I was floating somewhere up there and I was watching everything happen to my body, but it wasn't happening to me. I was okay. I was safe. And my friends would turn around and they would see me standing, and they would yell at me. They'd be like, Natalie, like, snap out of it. You have to run. Um, but I think back to it today and I think that it's insane that I could hear gunshots and just stand still. It took time for me to realize how insane that is. I think even when I watched my first few interviews after the attacks, even the first few months of interviews, when I watch those interviews today, I can still see how disassociated I was as I was talking about what happened. I could still see um, the lack of emotion, in my voice, the lack of emotion in my face. I could still see how much like that was affecting me. And at the time, I considered that dissociation my superpower because I felt that it gave me the ability to speak about what happened to me and what happened to all the other festival goers without re-traumatizing myself. And that's the reason why I wanted to start interviewing right away. It's because I felt that I had this superpower that a lot of other people didn't have. And until today, a lot of the survivors can't speak about that day. They can't talk about it without breaking down, without re traumatizing themselves. And I felt that I wanted to be their voice. I wanted to use my superpower to speak out on their behalf. And that's also why I felt that it was so important to remind people that the way I look, the way I act, the way I speak about it is not a representation of the majority. And it's very important to constantly remind people, because I do feel that a lot of the time people meet me and they're like, oh, it's so great to see that you're doing well. And I see in their mind, I see that they probably think that most of the survivors are doing well also, but that's simply not true.
Yeah. Um, of course, it'll be different for everyone, and just the way you're describing uh, the dissociation at the time, it's so surreal, so eerie, um, that this is the reaction your body had. And let me ask you, how long were you actually running for?
So I look at the timestamps on the photos and videos on my phone. I actually don't have that many, because as I was running, I was thinking to myself, like, I'm not gonna, take a video right now. The only time I really took photos or videos were those few moments where we were walking slowly and they weren't shooting at us. There are a lot of people who took a lot more documentation than I did, and it's a good thing that they did, because obviously we see today that we need it. Unfortunately, with all the deniers we have out there in the world, it's important to have that documentation. But we ran for about 4 hours, and
4 hours
yeah, yeah,
in the heat.
yeah, yeah. And this is coming from a person who is not athletic at all. Um, you know, Me and my friends, like, I think the type of personality we have and the reason why we get along is we're all able to um, laugh at the horrible things in life. My mom would always teach me that if you can't laugh at what life throws at you, then you're just going to cry all the time, and it's not worth living your life that way. So all my friends, after the attacks, they would laugh and they'd be like, Natalie, the out of all the things in your story, because everything in this story sounds so surreal. They're like, the thing that sounds the least realistic is the fact that you ran for 4 hours. They'd be like, that just sounds like unreal. But it's true. It was very difficult, especially because we were running in an area that was just full of very dry dirt, and the dirt was going up into the air, and we were inhaling it. And I just remember coughing and coughing, and we were just, our faces, my hair, everything was just covered in dirt. Um, and another thing I always like to point out is, we talk about the fact that the psytrance community is very peaceful and very loving. And you saw that in those moments as we were running. There's many stories of fires happening in buildings, or terror attacks where people actually get hurt because they trampled over each other. For example, the bombing that happened at I think it was like a triathlon or a marathon. It was a marathon, the Boston Marathon, yeah. And there's stories of people getting hurt, not just from the bombing itself, but from people trampling over each other. And that's something that you didn't see um, at the Nova Festival. As we were running, I saw people really taking care of each other and really being there for each other, even putting themselves at risk by slowing down to take care of those that were unable to run as fast, take care of those that were shot. People sharing water with each other, the little water that they thought to bring with them as they ran. There's so many small, beautiful moments in all that horror that I got to witness. Um, and I just think it's important to share those as well, to remind people of who was being attacked and how much they didn't deserve this.
at that at that moment when you and your friends are running, um, did you know where you were running to, or was it just based on instinct? We just got to get out of here.
So that's a major question I got asked in the beginning. People ask me, "How did you know where to run to? How did you know what to do to survive?" And I had a very hard time answering that question, because the answer is that nobody knew. A few months into the war, I spoke at a vigil in Columbus Circle, and after speaking at the vigil, a man came up to me and he introduced himself and he said, "Hi, I've seen a lot of your interviews, and I've seen how you've had such a hard time answering this question of how you knew where to run to." And he said he had interviewed many Holocaust survivors in his life. And when Holocaust survivors were asked in life and death situations how they knew what to do, what decision to make, they coined a term, and the term is called a choiceless choice. And the meaning of a choiceless choice is that in those life and death situations, you don't have much time to really think through which decision is going to be the right decision, whether it's turning left or turning right, whether it's hiding or continuing to run. And you simply have to make a decision in that moment, because regardless of what you do, like standing still and not choosing anything is not going to help you. So it's called a choiceless choice, and that term really perfectly describes every decision we made while running from the Hamas terrorists. They were all choiceless choices, because the answer is that nobody knew. We an example of one of those choiceless choices was, as we were running, I think this was about 2 or 3 hours into running, we passed by a group of friends from our campsite, and they were all hiding in a ditch. And they called us over, and they're like, guys, come here, come here, come hide in this ditch with us. And we started crawling into the ditch, and then one of the three friends that I originally came with started yelling at all of us. And he said, no, guys, this is a horrible idea. We can't do this. If we hide in this ditch and the Hamas terrorists find us in this ditch, we're sitting ducks. They're going to shoot us right on the spot. We'll have nowhere to run to. He said our only option for survival is to continue running. We can never stop running. And fortunately for us, he was right. But unfortunately for our friends, he was right. Unfortunately, none of them made it out.
Oh God.
And that's just one of the many examples of the choices we made while running, and there's so many of them. There were moments where we turned left, where other people turned right, and there was just no way of knowing, what decision was the right decision. But somehow we managed to make those right decisions.
It's terrifying to think how close you and your friends could have come to not being here had you made, as you say, one seemingly insignificant decision, whether to go left or right, whether to stop here or to stop a bit further up. There's so many variables, and the fact that you're able to be here and tell your story when so many others unfortunately aren't is is nothing short of incredible. Um, I saw that after running so far, you and your friends you stopped underneath a tree for some shade, and from there you saw a pickup truck coming towards you, which you thought was a Hamas vehicle. And in that moment, facing what you thought was the end, you all smiled at one another in silence. Now, what was going on there? What prompted this reaction?
Once again, it was kind of this eerily like peaceful moment, um, of kind of accepting that we gave a good fight. We tried. We ran for 4 hours, but this is it. They caught us. This is the end. Um, at first, when we saw the truck, we all automatically, we were sitting under this tree. It was me, my three friends, and I think about maybe 7 or 10 other survivors. And we're all sitting there, and I think for most of us, this is the first time that we like sat down in 4 hours, and we're all looking at each other, and we're all talking, and we're like, "What is going on?" And at this point, we didn't know about how many were murdered. We didn't know about the rape that was happening so close to us. We were just incredibly confused. 4 hours ago, we were at a music festival. And then we see this pickup truck, and we all kind of automatically like half got up and contemplated running. And then we all just simultaneously, without saying a word, realized like we have nowhere to run to. If this is a terrorist and they're in a truck and they have guns, we're on foot, we have nothing to protect ourselves with, you know, that's it. Like, hands up, this is the end. We've accepted our fate. And I just remember all of us kind of like sitting back down and like smiling and nodding at each other and just accepting that this is it. Um, as the truck got closer, we realized there was a girl in the front seat, and she was kind of waving her hand out the window so that we could see that she had the festival bracelet on. And it made us understand, like, oh, okay, this is someone coming to save us. Like, he just saved this girl and he's coming to save us as well. And he pulled up and he told all of us, like, get in the back of the truck. And we all just hopped in and we're sitting in that truck. And I remember as we're in the truck, I was standing in one of the corners of the pickup truck. And I just couldn't believe that we were being saved. But I also still didn't feel completely safe. I remember I was standing at first, and then I kind of started to duck down as we were driving in case we passed by any terrorists. They try to shoot at us. I didn't want to be an easy target. Um, and we're sitting in this truck, and we're all just in shock. We're like, we can't believe that this is happening. And this man, who I later got his name, I'll tell you his name afterwards, but he dropped us off in his hometown, which is the town of Patish. Um, and this town, I think most of the survivors ended up at this town. There was hundreds of us there. And he dropped us off, and as soon as he dropped us off, he turned right back around and he went back to save more lives. And I never got to get his name, and it took a few months to track him down. But after a few months, I was able to track him down. His name is Moshe Sati. He's from Patish. He was born and raised there, raised his own family there, and him and his son risked their own lives for about 8 or 10 hours on that day, driving back and forth from Patish to the festival grounds. This man, I think, saw the most horrors. Him and his son saw the most horrors from that day because they drove back and forth for 8 or 10 hours. They saw all the bodies. They saw the rape. They saw everything that nobody in their lifetime should have to see. And he saved, I think, about 300 to 400 lives that day.
Wow.
Risking his own life over and over again to save ours. And you made a point that those small decisions that I made separated me from those who were taken hostage and are still being held hostage today, and from those who were murdered and raped on that day. Um, and that's why it's so important for me to speak out on their behalf, because in some alternate universe where I made a slightly different decision, that would have been me. So to me, they are me. You know, they're all of us. All the survivors feel this way, that they are us, because in an alternate universe where we made slightly different decisions, that would have been us. um, and that's why it's so important for me to continue speaking out. I don't speak out for myself. I don't speak out because my story is more extraordinary than anyone else's on that day. I speak out because we need to keep talking about them. We need to keep reminding people that they are still there, and we need to remind people of all of those that we lost. I Something I think is truly so beautiful about the psytrance community is how much we really keep the memories alive of the friends that we've lost. If you go to any psytrance party in Israel, or I actually went for the first time to a festival, a large festival since the Nova Festival. I just got back from the Zora Festival, a psytrance festival which takes place in Budapest. Everyone makes stickers of their friends that they lost, with like a quote that their friend would always say, or they make flags. And you see at the Zora Festival, you see the stickers plastered everywhere. You see the flags waving, um, and it's really beautiful. I think anyone would want to be remembered that way by their friends. In the happiest moments, we try to remember them because that's where they belong. They belong with us on the dance floor. And I think it's really beautiful the way all these survivors are keeping their friends' memories alive.
Yeah, that's incredibly touching. What was that like for you to go back to your first Psytrance festival since the Nova massacre?
Um, it was amazing, especially being there with so many other survivors. It was really beautiful to see that they couldn't take away, our joy for dancing. But unfortunately, it was sad to see that there were people at the festival that felt the need to make us feel unwelcome. Um, at the festival, everyone would drive into the festival, set up their campsite, and the dust from the dirt on the ground would settle on all the cars. And people were writing in the dust on the cars, Free Palestine, Viva la Gaza. In the bathroom, someone wrote, Zionists not welcome. And I have photos of all of this if you would like to see them. I could send them to you later. Um, and it's unfortunate, but we didn't let that stop us from enjoying ourselves and from trying to um, continue with our lives and to keep our friends' memories alive while we do so.
I want to take you back to earlier this year at the March of the Living. You visited Auschwitz-Birkenau. You met Holocaust survivors, and you told your story. Now, during the march, you were stopped by anti-Israel protesters in the place where millions of Jews were massacred. Can you walk us through that day? What happened when you were stopped?
At first, when I saw them, I felt so much frustration, and like even thinking about it now, like it makes me emotional because to have someone protest against not just me, but all these amazing Holocaust survivors that endured such horrific things for years, and they're coming back to the place where they were tortured, and they're coming back with pride that they survived, that they continued with life, that they built a family. To come and protest against them is just so disgusting and so horrible, and it just proves the point that we're all trying to prove. People like the pro-Palestinian protesters, they all like to say that we're not anti-Semitic, we're not against Jews, we're against Zionism. What does the Holocaust have to do with Zionism? it it's two completely separate things. The Holocaust was a genocide against Jews, not a genocide against Israelis, because Israel was not an official state. So for them to come and protest the March of the Living just goes to show that this isn't about Zionism, which, number one, being a Zionist is believing that the Jews have the right to their ancestral land. So they're one and the same. We all know that. But people like to pretend like they're not one and the same. So to come in to protest the March of the Living is just proving the fact that it's not about Zionism, that it's about Jews, that you are anti Semitic. So at first, it was frustrating and very upsetting, but then I saw the reaction of our people. We came up to them and we just sang in their face, and we sang Am Yisrael Chai, and it was so beautiful because we showed them that we're not going anywhere, that you can waste your life hating us all you want. We're going to spend our life loving, and we're going to spend our life being happy, and we're going to spend our life enjoying and singing and dancing, and your hate is never going to stop that. And it was so beautiful to see that. It was incredible, and it was a testament to what the Jews have done for centuries. This is how we've always reacted. We've always come back together and said, like, you're not going to stop us. And that's proven in like all of our holidays. What are all our holidays about? It's about someone trying to destroy us, someone trying to wipe us off the earth, someone trying to kill us, and we make a holiday out of it, and we come together and we eat food and we sing songs, and we remember that we're still here. um, and it really was a beautiful moment.
Hmm, I bet it was. Um, Natalie, as we begin to wind down, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all of our guests on the podcast. If someone who is not Jewish comes to you and says that they want to help in the fight against anti-Semitism, where should they start?
That's actually a really good question, and I really do love that question because I have had a lot of people come to me and ask me that, and they ask me like, what can I do, how can I help? And I think what they can do is more so non-Jews, I think, than most Jews have a lot of friends or family that are possibly just ignorant and don't know much about what's going on, and because of that they maybe believe things that aren't true. I think the best thing they can do is to teach others. They already understand the truth, they already know you know what's really happening. They don't believe all the lies that are spread on social media, but they probably have a lot of friends and a lot of family that don't. And I think the best thing that they can do is to teach those people, because sometimes as a Jew, when you're trying to teach someone and you're coming from a good place and you're trying to explain something to them, they might accuse you of just being biased because you're Jewish. And I think when they hear it from someone who is kind of outside of the conflict, the they'll take that opinion, well, not opinion, but they'll take that person's words more into consideration. So I think the best thing that they can do is to try to teach others. Um, because as we can see, a lot of fake propaganda is being spread all over the place. And what a lot of people are trying to do is to calmly teach others, to not come at people in an attacking tone, but to do it in a very calm manner. And I think that's the best thing that they can do, is to try to spread what they already know to be true to those who might not understand. Part of the reason why teaching others is so important is because of the fact that I've seen personally, like you said, those who are on our side and those who actually love us and those who understand the truth, they're greater in number, but most people don't realize this because they're more silent. And it's the ones who hate us who are more aggressive and loud. And that's why they seem bigger in number, but they're actually not. And I've witnessed that firsthand, because most of the messages that I receive as someone who's very outspoken online are messages of love and support. And I receive maybe, I would say like maybe 20% of the messages are messages of hate. So in order to actually be a good ally and to show support, you need to speak out. That's what's important, because staying silent as an ally is almost as bad as, being hateful and being against us. It's so important to speak out as an ally. So I just want people to understand how important that is. That if you are with us and if you do understand, if you do support us and love us, please speak out. Share the truth. Don't be afraid to do so. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid of people's reactions or opinions, because you will get bad reactions. But as an ally, that's the biggest way that you can support.
It's so true, because I think a lot of people who, as you say, are in the silent majority, they're thinking, well, I stand with my Jewish friends and I'm not anti-Semitic. I know I'm not anti-Semitic. Yeah, that's great, but a lot of a lot of Jews are scared, and they need to know that you're not anti-Semitic. So
Yeah,
as you say, speak out. Whatever platform you have or willing to use, it makes a big difference.
yeah,
It makes it a big difference.
1000%.
Um, Natalie, please tell the listeners, what have you got going on? What have you got coming up? And where can people find you?
So what I have going on, I'm speaking out as much as possible. Um, People can find me on X, which is now, what Twitter used to be. On Instagram, my handle is simply my name, Natalie Sanandaji. Um, there you can find links to my articles that I've written. For example, I recently had an article come out on JPost about my experience at the Ozora Festival. I'm hopefully going to be starting my own podcast soon, speaking about my life since October 7th and how it's changed, and hopefully interviewing those who've also been affected by October 7th, and not so much speaking about that day itself, but people's lives since then and how they've changed for the better or worse. So another part of what I've been up to since October 7th, before October 7th, I was working in real estate in Brooklyn, and I realize now how much I was always trying to kind of include like a comfortable surrounding of being surrounded by people who are like-minded in my life. And I think that's why I worked for a real estate company owned by someone Jewish, and where most of the agents were Israeli. And since October 7th, I realized that I couldn't go back to making my day-to-day something that didn't have to do with what happened to me. I couldn't go back to it and kind of phase out and simply forget about what happened. And I was given the incredible opportunity of joining the Combat Antisemitism movement. I joined them in November officially, and it's given me the opportunity, to continue with my life and continue working while not having to forget what happened to me. I on a daily basis I get to take what happened to me and try to turn it into something positive. Um, and it's been an incredible experience. You know, I never thought that I'd be fighting anti-Semitism, but I think today more than ever we realize how important it is. So it's really been incredible to do that, and I feel like this is where I was meant to be in a way. I got here in a very unconventional way, but I feel that I'm in the right place. And like I said, you know, the best way that you can show support for me and for my fellow survivors is by speaking out, being vocal. Um, and you know, if you follow me and if you see what I post and if you share it, that's an amazing way to, you know, to help me and to help our fellow survivors. So I really appreciate anyone who does choose to follow me, and maybe if you want, I can like send you some links to my profiles for people to follow, and then they can share anything that I share, and I appreciate it.
Well, look, Natalie, to throw it back at you, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story. I know you've done this a lot, but I know even still, it must be hard. So, look, really, I want to thank you very much for coming on Podcast Against Antisemitism.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.